Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Thank you once again for tuning in week after week. We're trending. We're ranked in the top 150 in mental health in the world. So thankful for all of you because it's because of you guys. You're not only listening in, but you're sharing these amazing guests that I have on who are being vulnerable, and they're talking about some things that they've been through. And I'm just so grateful for you. And I want you to know how much I love you guys. I would like to take the time to thank our sponsors, Siegfried and Jensen and Ned Siegfried. Thank you so much. Wasatch Recovery and Mark Richards, he runs an amazing program. Hill Institute with Rebecca D. Azevedo. She's an amazing woman. Drew Peterson, the former owner of Veracity Networks. Thank you for your support. And then Living Recoveries Interventions with Travis Whitaker. Travis, you're an amazing man. I love all you guys. Thank you for your support. And I also like to thank my previous guests. They've been amazing, and today's going to be no different. Today we're joined by Ann Moss Rogers. Ann Moss, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And Todd, I'm so excited that you are trending and that mental health is now in the forefront of what we're discussing. So thank you.
You betcha. Well, you guys are going to be blown away by Ann Moss and her story and what she's been through and what she's doing now to make a difference in this world. We do need to give a little warning here. We're going to talk about a very sensitive and serious subject. We're going to talk about suicide, and we're going to talk about suicide prevention. There is a crisis hotline, which is 800-273-8255. It'll be changing in July, but I'm gonna say that again. It's 800-273-8255. And then there's also a crisis text that 741-741. If any of you are struggling at this time, hearing this even, please call those numbers or text. Anyway, love you guys. And thanks for tuning in. Boy, you guys are going to love Ann Moss. Little background. She is emotionally naked public speaker, which we're going to talk about what that means, TEDx storyteller, certified suicide prevention trainer. She's an NAMI, Virginia board member, and the award-winning author of Diary of a Broken Mind. She's also written another book called Emotionally Naked. After her 20-year-old son, Charles, died by suicide on June 5th, 2015, Ann Moss chronicled her family's tragedy in a newspaper article that went viral, and her blog, Emotionally Naked, has reached millions. And I'm so excited to talk about that, Ann Moss. And then, like we talked about, she's written that second book. She's been featured in New York Times. She was the first non-clinician ever invited to speak at the National Institute of Mental Health on suicide. Congratulations to that. That's beautiful. You currently live in Richmond, Virginia with her husband, her surviving son, Richard. And we're going to actually, dedicate this to all those who are struggling, but especially to her son who passed away, Charles. So Ann Moss.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So welcome. And I could keep going with your bio here, but I just want to maybe start off by asking you, talking about this and sharing this. You say in a talk of yours that talking about suicide actually saves lives. So maybe I can ask you, why is that the case?
Well, a lot of people think it inserts the idea into someone's head. And I can understand that because I think at one point I wondered if that was the case too.
Yeah.
So what we have found, and multiple studies have been done on this, and we always come up with the same answer, that it actually encourages those who are struggling to reach out because it is so stigmatized.
Yeah.
And however, I want to make the distinction that being exposed to a suicide in your family, a suicide in your community or a school or among your friend group can increase someone's risk for suicide. So that's why it's important for us to start talking about it, so that we have several people in the same community who are kind of looking out for each other and recognizing those signs and having those conversations with their loved ones.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and that's very well said. You know, I wanted to start off, I want to talk about what happened with your son. I know you wrote a blog post, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was titled The Final 48 Hours. Is that correct?
It is.
Yeah. And that went viral. And I remember you received a letter from someone after that said they were thinking about taking their life and they decided not to seek help because of what you had written. And so I want to talk about that. So talk about what happened up to that point and whatever you're comfortable with sharing about your son, Charles.
Sure. So Charles is the funniest, most popular kid in school. And he was the last person you would have expected would have taken his life. And he was around 2010, his drug use started to escalate. And I was like, we talked about this, and he had said the year before, I'm never doing this. And all of a sudden, he was doing all this crazy stuff, and robo tripping, you name it. I mean, I was finding empty Cool Whip, not Ready Whip containers everywhere, and beer bottles in the eaves of the attic. And I was like, wow, what is up?
Yeah.
What was happening is that my son was struggling with depression and thoughts of suicide, and decided to use substances so that he wouldn't kill himself. And to a teenager, it's like that here and now, I want to use something to numb it now. And of course, that is what actually drove him to suicide in the end, to actually die that way. But, kind of looking back, I can understand his thinking. But at the time, I did not. I mean, I didn't know about his thoughts of suicide. I didn't know he struggled with depression. He ends up becoming addicted to heroin. And that is after we went through, sending him to a therapeutic boarding school and a wilderness program. I mean, we spent a lot of money. And then we had to travel up there to do family work and, that therapy experience. Yeah. So it wasn't like we sent him away to be fixed and thought, oh, he's going to come back a pretty package all done. And I knew it didn't work that way, but I had hoped he would develop the coping strategies that would replace the drugs and alcohol.
Right.
That didn't happen, unfortunately. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. Sometimes it's just, it just doesn't always work out. He came home and almost immediately became addicted to heroin. And meanwhile, I think I am blocking it. I am doing everything to make sure he doesn't need heroin. And he was already deep into it. And I didn't know it because he was doing those drugs at night. He was snorting it, which I didn't even know was possible. I thought it had to be done with a needle or a prescription. And I was wrong. And, I was naive, and I was trying. It was really hard to keep up with the mental illness, the groups I was with. And then all of a sudden, this addiction, which I didn't know about until 30 days before his death.
Okay.
So then I kind of had to cram, because before then it had been marijuana and, alcohol. And so now it was this new thing, and, which one is the right information? And then some of it was so depressing that I was having trouble. I had to cut it off. It was just taking me to a really bad place. And I just had to pull out. So he finally confesses. He goes to detox and rehab. And then he relapses right when he gets to a recovery house. And so he sees a friend at the when they take him back to detox, that was their protocol, is when somebody relapsed at a recovery house, you can't be using in a recovery house, right?
Yeah, right.
So they took him back to detox. They got him checked in, and the house manager left and sent us a text. And then the next text was that he had seen a friend and they had walked out together because, Todd, they just wanted one more party, one more hit, and then they'd go back,
Right.
And that didn't happen. And then for 2 weeks, we didn't know where he was. And we're sitting in the back of a police car in a parking lot when the policeman gave us the news that they had found our son dead. I was sure it was overdose because by now we know about heroin and we've heard about all these overdoses.
For sure, yeah.
We're screaming and wailing and, we're out of our minds. We're in shock. And my husband says, "How did he die?" And the policeman actually told us the method of his suicide. And that method left no question. It was not an overdose. And I was just shocked. I couldn't even breathe. My husband is beating on the glove box, having an emotional breakdown. I can't even let the words. It was so shocking to me. And then my first thought is, how could I be such a crummy mother that my child would check out on me? Didn't he know we loved them? But it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
And my son suffered unimaginable emotional pain and the physical pain of withdrawal when he took his own life.
Yeah.
And that's often what we don't talk a lot about. I know that people in the recovery community talk about the risk of suicide all the time to each other, but the rest of the world doesn't really know the risk of suicide, particularly right when they first go into recovery, right when they're going through withdrawal, when they're transitioning back to the community. And you know how hard that is. You got to make new friends, find a new job, housing.
It's heavy. Yep.
It is. It takes everything you have, and it is a very challenging time. And a lot of people say, "Oh, my child relapsed," and sometimes they do, but how many of those are intentional?
Yeah. In my line of work, I hear this all the time, and you said it perfectly, Ann Moss, that transition for clients when they leave treatment, it's like now they feel exposed too, that emotionally naked that you're going to be talking about here in a minute. But it's like, what do I do? How do I find a job? I have no money. I need to get a car. I need to get my license back. I need to, all these things, and just the emotional and mental stress that puts on someone is very, very difficult for them to deal with. So thanks for bringing that up, because that's a good point for sure.
And then the court cases, and I can't get my license back because I have $20,000 worth of fines before I can get a car back.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, how overwhelming that is.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear this about Charles, but I know that afterwards you ended up eventually writing a blog post, like we mentioned, called "The Final 48 Hours." And tell us why you wrote that and why you decided to do that.
So I had written an article that went viral, and right before that article came out, I started the blog called Emotionally Naked to find healing through writing and shine a spotlight on all the topics of mental illness, suicide, and coping strategies, and highlighting other people's story of coming out of the darkness. So how did you do it?
Right.
Because I wanted hope and healing to be part of that message as well. I am facing my son's first death anniversary and I am falling apart. Super epic grief relapse, because
Yeah.
grief isn't this linear thing. It's kind
Right.
of this tangled mess of emotions that you somehow get the rhythm of over time. I'm facing that. It's midnight. I can't sleep. I get up. I start writing this blog post about how we got the news, step by step, what they said, what we said, how we reacted, basically bringing people into the scenario where I got the news.
Yeah.
My hand hovers over, I shouldn't publish this. I shouldn't expose everyone to my ugly, naked mama grief. I'm just asking for pity. And then finally, I'm like, I just got to publish it,
Yeah.
but I don't have to share it on social media. And it was the first post that I never shared on social media.
Really? Wow.
My subscribers connected with it and they shared it. And all of a sudden, I get all these messages from my hosting company. I've got to, increase my, bandwidth.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? I just started this a month ago. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I looked at my stats and I'm like, holy cow. I was just blown away by the number of people that come to my itty bitty little blog. And then I get 2 days later, I get a message from this girl named Lauren that says, 2 days ago, I thought about taking my life. But reading a post from a mother who's felt such devastating pain has changed my perspective on life.
Wow.
And Todd, that was the first time I recognized that people wanted to tell. I thought it was this big secret that people kept themselves and that they didn't want to tell. I didn't understand how desperately people want to tell, and that it was the stigma and the shame that kept people from telling.
Yeah.
And this blog post nearly validated what she already wanted to do. And I will be very clear that had I been sitting across from Lauren and talking to her, if I had said, well, what about your parents? She would have felt ashamed and she would have withdrawn.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like this was her own discovery. I'm going to click through and see what this mother feels. So it was a choice.
Yeah.
And she had never thought about it from her parents' point of view.
Yeah.
But I didn't start telling her, it's different.
Yeah.
It was that self-discovery. And that was when I finally figured out, I'm a digital marketing expert. I've gotten plumbers leads online by using their frequently asked questions and doing a really good job of answering those questions and getting top spots on Google.
Yeah.
Why can't I do that for people who are searching for a way to die?
Wow.
And perhaps there are a few of them that we can kind of pull out of that trance, because they may not even understand what they're searching, because they're sort of in that mode or that episode where their brain is being held hostage by thoughts of suicide.
Yeah. Wow. Very well said. Thank you for sharing that, and very touching that girl reached out to you. Is that when you kind of decided, you know what, I need to share and continue to share? Because you talk about this all the time, how sharing saves lives. And obviously, to take that one girl you just mentioned, Lauren, who it saved her life by listening to a mom who's gone through, and the pain that you were going through, that she could relate with on some level. I mean, that just is so fascinating. Is that when you decided you wanted to kind of just broaden your scope and start sharing with as many people as you could?
I did. It completely changed my life. I sold my digital marketing business and decided to pursue suicide prevention full time.
Wow.
And, I've got a foot in the addiction world
Yeah.
and prevention there, and then a foot in the suicide prevention. And you'd be surprised at how many similarities there are along the way. But our society still wants to put them in two separate little silos.
Yeah.
But to our brain, they're cake batter,
Yeah, for sure.
there
Absolutely.
there is no difference. So but yeah, that was when I decided, and then trying to figure out what that contribution would be. So I have at least 50 ranked blog posts that people only find through search. So I have 3,000 blog posts.
Wow.
And yeah, and a lot of them are words that people use. So I know how to do that.
Right.
So that has really helped. It's helped people find healing. It's helped
Yeah.
people, should I kick my loved one out of the house, for their addiction? I can't live with them anymore. And I have a blog post on that because it's not a simple question.
Right.
And I also don't want people to ever think it's kicked out, and
Yeah.
I don't, and friends will say, you need to kick him out. It's like, you're not living this. You have no idea
Yeah.
what should be done.
Right. No, that is so true.
Such a complicated question, and it's the number one question I get. I can't live again. What do I do? How am I gonna? I can't live every day like this because I'm in my loved one's firestorm.
Yeah.
And it's turning my life upside down.
Yeah. No, and can we touch on that for a minute, Ann Moss? Because
Sure.
I get that question all the time.
All
Should
the
I kick
time.
my son out? He's using in the basement. Should I kick my daughter out? She's drinking on the weekends or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? And what could a parent listening to you right now, what would you tell them? And again, you obviously got some experience in this, so I'd love to hear what you have to say on that.
First, we should never withdraw love.
Okay.
And we should never think of it as leverage for them finding rock bottom or recovery. Because as you know, some people have some firestorm thing happen, but some people are sitting in a coffee shop and are like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I have a loved one that just came home for a holiday and woke up one morning after a huge binge and said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going into recovery. Just like that. There wasn't any big, catastrophic event.
Yeah.
So sometimes we think that kicking them out, and let's just say them moving out, is going to spur them into recovery. And we just don't know that that's the case. I mean,
Yeah.
from my point of view, my son's rock bottom was suicide. It was killing himself. And I feel like he thought it was a withdrawal of love. So I love Ryan Hampton's example of, he was couch surfing while he was using, and he wasn't living with his mother. He was in his 30s. And she would come and meet him for lunch or bring him dinner wherever he was, because she always wanted to make sure that he knew he was loved no matter what. And I wish I had said to my own son, as much as I want you to get well, I love you, even if you don't. So I needed to preface it with that.
Okay.
You need to think about, can I live with this anymore? We had decided we could not. We didn't end up asking our son to leave because he went to detox and rehab.
Yeah.
And then we made the decision that he would go to recovery house and we would support that. He wanted to come home, and I couldn't take any more sketchy strangers in the house at 2 a.m.
Yeah, right.
I was afraid to leave my own bedroom. I would hear the garage door go up. The dog would come in distress. There'd be vomit on the floor any given day. He would set off the alarm. The burners would still be on when I'd wake up in the morning. And there were a couple of incidences that had happened in the neighborhood where I knew he went into someone else's house. And I'm like, I can't be responsible for that behavior.
Right.
So we had our house on the market. Actually, it already sold. So we were moving. There wasn't really a place to leave. We were packing up his room.
Yeah. Right.
So it was an easy decision for us to say, after going to the rehab and the detox, that he go to a recovery house, because that was where the people could support each other. It's peer recovery and it works.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, it means the person isn't ready, or their maladaptive tendencies haven't had had the opportunity of working through all those exercises that kind of gets your brain back to thinking in a normal way. Because, as you know, it just takes time for your brain to rewire.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to judge. And I also don't judge someone who decides that I can live with this. And if they're still using and they're not cooking at night and it's not putting other family members at risk. I mean, some people have young children and they can't have somebody, shooting up in the basement. It's just not safe.
For sure.
So you just have to figure out what your situation is and how you actually go about asking them to leave is really hard, because a lot of people want to rent a house or an apartment, and that I've never heard that turn out well, because it usually comes a place that everybody goes to use for free and it becomes a trap house.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, you have to get both parents to decide and make an ultimatum that, we just can't live with this anymore. And, here's some places, if you want to go into recovery, but, we love you no matter what, we can't live with you anymore.
Yeah.
And that is so, so hard. And the article on my site is, should you kick your addicted child out of the house?
Great. And we'll reference that in the show notes as well, so people can find that on your blog. And thank you for that information. That's very, very well said. And we needed to hear that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry there are no definitive answers to that
I know
question.
I know. I go through it all the time with my clients' parents. So I know exactly what you're saying. You call yourself an emotionally naked public speaker. I know what that means, but maybe our listeners don't. Will you explain why you say emotionally naked?
It's vulnerability times 10. So I think that after I wrote that first article, I felt vulnerable, but more than that, I felt stripped naked, left on an island with TV cameras all around me. So it's kind of like that vulnerability plus the spotlight. And it's intense, and you feel like that's a huge risk, but it's also a beautiful place to be, because there's so much freedom once you've made that decision to just let it go.
Yeah.
And not worry about your image. And after I wrote the newspaper article and they told me it was going to be in the Sunday paper, I was terrified. I mean, terrified.
Right.
I had to pull over, do deep breathing exercises, because Todd, the first thing I thought about is, oh, I forgot to tell anyone. I forgot to tell my husband, my mother.
Oh no.
My business partner, my best friend. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Oh man, I can
So
imagine.
I had to send it all to them first. My husband was so supportive.
Oh, great.
My mother not at first,
Yeah.
and she worried that I was putting myself in a vulnerable position and that
Yeah.
people would judge me and that would make things worse. But I had already thought through that scenario. I had kind of made a list of all the best and worst things that could happen,
Yeah.
and I talked my way through them. And that I call it my alter ego.
Okay.
And we have conversations in my head, and I'm like, what is so bad about that? You
Yeah.
said you were going to be bold. We didn't think this would be like,
Yeah.
skipping through a meadow, with a basket of daisies and muffins.
Right.
It it is more like pushing a spike ball uphill in a snowstorm.
Wow. Well,
It
I can
is.
only
It's
imagine.
pushback.
Yeah. Well, I do respect that about you. Honestly, you're very real. You're authentic. Again, you're not afraid to talk about tough things, and I think that's why people love you so much. Done a ton of research on you. I've watched your talks. I've read your blog. I'm just so blown away at your authenticity and your vulnerability. You call it emotionally naked times 10, which I totally agree. But I think that's what people are starving for. And I think that's why people resonate with you so much going back to that girl, Lauren, I'm sure that's why she's like, wow, I'm hearing this raw feelings from this mom who just lost her son Charles, and man, I don't want to have to put my family through that. And I mean, that's because you're being completely, as you say, naked and weren't
Yeah.
afraid to put it out there. So I just want you to know I respect that so much, Ann Moss, that you do that.
Well, thank you. It also, I have to add that I also needed to learn how to do that responsibly,
Yeah.
because this subject can trigger people. So
Yeah.
I don't reveal the titles of some of the blog posts that are most popular from Google for a reason. One,
Yeah.
they can potentially trigger someone, and that can be very dangerous. Like we had trigger warning and we had resources that we talked about prior to this podcast so that we
Yeah.
could have a
Yeah.
respectful conversation on it. And I needed to understand what I needed to stay away from in order to recognize people's safety and respect that. And so I also spent a lot of time researching that and
Right.
reading a lot of like the reporting guidelines on suicide, getting real training. And at first I talked more about the addiction and a little less about the suicide because I wasn't I I wasn't real sure about the subject at first. I
Yeah.
talked about the fact that he died by suicide, but I didn't make like I didn't come across as an expert because I wasn't one. I am now, but I wasn't back then. And I needed to treat the subject with care,
Yeah.
but also not avoid it. And that took a lot of work, but it was so worth it, and I got so much out of it by becoming more educated
Yeah.
and talking to people with lived experience, and then talking to suicidologists and other experts.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. Let me just quickly say the suicide prevention lifeline again is 800-273-8255. I just want to put that in there right now. Ann Moss, you've written a couple books. You have an award-winning book called Diary of a Broken Mind. Do you mind explaining what that book is about and why you wrote that?
Well, my soul is between those two book covers,
Mm,
and it took over a year to write. And before my son died by suicide, I was writing a book in my head because I needed to have some grandiose positive story,
yeah.
written in my head.
Yeah.
And as soon as he died, the subject and how that book would be written completely changed. And it did continue to stalk me until I started to put it on paper.
Okay.
And I called it Diary of a Broken Mind because that was the name of one of my son's songs.
Okay.
So every other chapter after chapter 3 is one of his rap music songs that explains. I mean, he was so incredible about captivating how it felt to be addicted, how it felt to suffer from depression and thoughts of suicide. And then there's some funny songs and some hopeful songs in there.
Yeah.
But anyone that wants to understand our family stories deserve to hear it from his point of view as well as mine.
Right.
So as I write the memoir, each chapter is followed by a chapter of his writing.
Okay.
To sort of tell his family story, and the feedback, oh my gosh, it's been incredible. I just heard from my co-writer of my second book, the Teacher's Guide for Preventing Suicide. And she was like, I finished it in one sitting. It's the most powerful book I've ever read in my life.
Wow.
And I was really touched because Kim is, I so respect her. She's so amazing.
Sure.
And of all the, I've gotten a lot of feedback. I swear that, anybody, a movie star could have said that, but the fact that Kim did it, it meant so much.
Meant the world to you, yeah.
Yeah, and it allows people to understand what their children are going through. So it is for parents who have not lost a child to addiction or suicide, and it is for ones that have. And that's been a remarkable journey, and now it's available worldwide as of last week.
Oh wow, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. So it's taken a while.
Yeah, well, again, I love all the good you're doing, Ann Moss. I get choked up when I think that you lost your son.
Thank you. He was such a doll baby.
Sorry.
But because I'm gonna cry right with you. You knew I would.
Yeah. I just love your example of taking this tragedy and doing so much good with it. And I hate that you had to go through that, but I'm so grateful that we have you spreading this message and helping parents who don't have the answers, and they need just some guidance. And you're an excellent writer, by the way. You're just really good at the way you create a story, and a narrative is so powerful. And I really do respect that. If there's someone right now that's listening to your voice, who's struggling, who is in that dark place, what's something that you could tell them right now? You've already shared some great things, but that one person right now who's just on the edge and just struggling, what would you tell them right now?
Well, they think they're a burden, right? And they're not telling anyone how they're struggling because they feel like they're a burden. But what you don't realize is that you're sharing yourself and your soul is a gift to another person to make them feel honored and loved and important enough to receive that news. And I think that choosing that right person to share with, it's so important. And I've written a blog post also, how do you tell someone you want to die? And I give them scripts, and what to say and how to pick the right person. And that gets a lot of searches from Google as well, because people want to tell. We say, reach out, but we don't say, how do you tell someone? And if you are thinking of suicide, you have to say, this is really scaring me. I don't know where it comes from, but I am struggling with thoughts of suicide and I need some help. You must say the words, I am thinking about killing myself, or I am thinking about suicide. You have to be very direct.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And oftentimes it's, oftentimes the person you're telling may not think you're serious. So that's why picking a person that you trust and is empathetic, and people who struggle with thoughts of suicide are naturally empaths anyway.
Yeah.
And they're really good at picking out the right person that can be trusted with this information.
Yeah.
It's so important to tell. And for those of you who lived with a loved one who struggle, the greatest gift you can give to another human being is to let them feel heard. So you have to do that thing called listening, which means shutting up,
Right.
listening more, and lecturing less. And that is, questions like, why do you think you're a burden? How long have you felt this way? Tell me more about how you feel. I'm so sorry you feel that way. You don't want to say, you have so much to live for, because you're not meeting people where they are. They're in despair. They're in darkness.
Yeah.
That's where you got to go. You don't have to go and sit that way forever.
Right.
But that's what deepens your human relationships.
Yeah.
Because the path to joy is often through pain. And a lot of people don't recognize, not always, but where we find and where we grow, and what you're going through now, that pain are emotional building blocks to healing. Just like after you go have knee surgery and you come back home and it's all blown up and it's hurting like crazy, a week later it doesn't, because it's healing.
Yeah.
And that's the same with emotional pain. That pain has purpose.
Wow.
And it is emotional healing. And if you keep it all bottled up in there, it's just going to take up more of your brain real estate. You got to let it go. You got to let it vent.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much. And can you also share me that link to that to that blog post as well? Because I want to add that to the show notes as well.
It's the kick addicted out of the house, because that's in the chat.
I've got that one. And then the other one you just mentioned, how do you tell someone you want to die?
Oh, yeah, I've got that one.
Great.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. If someone wants to, I mean, you've got a website, annmossrogers.com, emotionallynaked.com. You've written 2 books. You got an amazing blog that's just amazing. You're doing all these great things. What's the best way for someone to reach out to you if they have a question, if they want to know more, they want to learn about what you're doing or listen to your next speech? What's the best way for someone to do that, Ann Moss?
Well, right. They can go to emotionallynaked.com and click the events tab. And that is all my latest events. And just go through the contact form. And I'm on social media a lot, LinkedIn the most, Facebook. I do have Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I check those a little less than LinkedIn and Facebook. But I'm usually pretty easy to reach because I'm online at designated times during the day, frequently enough.
Right. No. Okay. Well, I just encourage anyone listening to this right now, especially if, you're a parent and you have a son or a daughter that struggling, but you're not sure what to say or how to even break the ice with them, reach out to Ann Moss. She will help you, or check out her blog. There'll be, a lot of answers to your questions are right in there. I mean, like you said, there's so many great things. And then your book, Emotionally Naked, A Teacher's Guides to Preventing Suicide and Recognizing Students at Risk. I think that's a book that we all should get, especially those with children. and that kind of thing. So is there any last words you'd like to share with our listeners? Any last things that you'd want to maybe close with?
Well, one is Kimberly O'Brien, licensed clinical social worker and PhD, is my co-writer for that second book. I just
Gotcha.
wanted to give her a plug in as well.
Sorry, Kimberly. Yes.
I think it is really just listen and work on that art of listening. And if you're in a dark place, I guess, opposite action. So you don't want to do something new. You don't want to change. You don't want to get out of bed. Figure out a way that you can get out of bed and start to see those cracks of light, of joy.
Right. Yeah.
That going through difficult times can sometimes obscure. And that takes some work. So the way I got out of bed was, all you have to do right now is put your feet on the floor. Turn around, put your feet on the floor. That's all you have to do.
Right. Yeah.
Broke it down to micro steps. So figure out how you can break something down to micro steps and figure out one person you can tell that will help you get connected to the help that you need to work yourself out of this.
Wow. Love that. Well, Ann Moss Rogers, you are amazing. I can't thank you enough for taking some time to be on my show today. Our listeners, myself, we needed to hear this today. This message needs to be heard more now than ever. I mean, it's, I think you mentioned in one of your talks that the number one cause of death for girls 14 to 19 years old is now suicide. And it just goes to tell you how much your message needs to be heard and shared. And so I want to challenge everyone listening to this right now. Please share this with someone you know that may be struggling, that just needs to hear this. It may be a good icebreaker for you if you're not sure what to tell them. Let them listen to Ann Moss Rogers' voice and her passion and light to help other people. I think that'll be a huge thing for them. And it'll also give you a resource to be able to tap back into that when you want to talk to them. So Ann Moss, you're amazing. Thank you for taking some time today with me. And I just love what you're doing.
Thank you. I love what you're doing. And I hope all you listening will also leave a rating and review, because we need these mental health podcasts to start to come to the top.
Absolutely. We need more of this for sure. And we're going to make that happen. You and I are going to team up on this, and we're going to push this, and we're going to advertise this, and we're going to make it happen. So love you guys for tuning in. I told you this was going to be another great guest, but also it's a very sensitive and tough subject to talk about. But Ann Moss just makes us feel at home when we talk to her. So please reach out to her. Please share all her stuff. Please, if you have a question, reach out to her, or you can reach out to me. And then if you need help, I'm going to give that number one more time. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 800-273-8255. And then there's a crisis text 741-741. Love you guys. Ann Moss, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Until next time, everybody.